Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. We're filming this on Wednesday, July 17th. The first part of Citizens Forum is always the Walter and Jack show, so we're going to start off. Walter, a couple of days ago, Stephen Harper picked his new cabinet, and there's been a lot of to and fro. We've seen pictures of the dozens of them, and there was, the media made a story about the women who were in the cabinet and a few other stories. But to me, the main question is this, and it's a very important question. Why does Stephen Harper get to pick the cabinet? The problem is that if one person chooses the cabinet, then the entire cabinet basically belongs to him, because he can unchoose them tomorrow if he wants to. In other words, if they all don't do exactly what he says, Mr. Harper can remove any of them from cabinet. And to me, if you're pretending that this country is a democracy, to give somebody, especially somebody like Stephen Harper, essentially the powers of a king or a dictator, is a very dangerous thing to do. And I mean, I'm not surprised that the media never tells that story, but to me that's the most important issue here. How do we want our government, which is essentially what the cabinet is, to be chosen? Maybe it should be chosen by the entire caucus of the Conservative Party. Maybe it should be chosen by the entire Parliament, so it represents all of us. But certainly it should not be chosen by one man, because it's undemocratic.
Well, it becomes a problem when you have a guy like Stephen Harper in power. And of course, it's not only that he chooses a cabinet, but basically those cabinet ministers, I don't think, can even issue a press release without sending it to the Prime Minister's office to have it vetted. They don't have any control even after they're appointed in their portfolios. It's basically a government that's being run by large corporate interests.
Who control Stephen Harper.
Who control Stephen Harper. So it really is, it's really a rip-off for the Canadian public.
And I think that's why the media never raises the question, because for the last 30 or 40 years, the media has always controlled our Prime Minister. And if the media controls the Prime Minister on behalf of the corporations, then they want that person to be choosing the cabinet, because they only have to control the one person, and then they control our entire government. I'll disagree with you on, when we have somebody like Stephen Harper running the government. They're all the same. If you give them the power, it's always dangerous.
Yeah, okay. I think the thing is, the point I'd make, though, is that if he was appointing these ministers, and then they had independence, real independence, and could make decisions and take initiatives forward and such, that would mitigate that power. But because he appoints them and then doesn't allow them to do anything, and often, by the way, Stephen Harper and other prime ministers have done this, they'll see very, very qualified people in their party, and they won't bring them into the cabinet because they see those people as being a challenge to their authority. So you wouldn't put somebody with a lot of strength, say in healthcare or issues around, financial issues around how Health Canada is operating and such, because that they would easily contradict the Harper agenda. So you put somebody in that really doesn't have much background there at all, so that you can control them, basically.
It's a dangerous situation for all of us. It's something, I think, that's worthy of discussion, and I think we should be discussing it. It's unfortunate that it's never really discussed. The next issue we're going to talk about is something with the Royal Society, which is a very interesting topic. It has to do with a kind of study about smart meter safety. Maybe you can lead us into it.
Well, the idea of the Royal Society of Canada is sprang from the Royal Society of England, and all the prominent scientists of the day belonged to the Royal Society. For instance, Newton was a member of the Royal Society in England, and so it dates back hundreds and hundreds of years.
But it's a prominent scientific body in the country.
That's true, and it's seen as an independent voice for science. Now, if you actually look at it and you look at who are the members, and they're all being employed by large corporate interests, that isn't quite the case, where they are holding up the Royal Society as being independent when really in reality it isn't. So what's happened is, and this happened in 1999, we had the federal government and Health Canada appointed the Royal Society of Canada to look into the safety and the regulations around exposure to radiation such as that emitted from cell phones and Wi-Fi and all this.
And smart meters.
Smart meters and all the rest. And they came back with a report, and it was a mixed sort of report, but basically it was business as usual, what the government decided to do based upon that report. So now, here we are, 12, 14 years later, they're back at it again to review it again. They appointed a committee from the Royal Society to look over the issue. Every one of them have very strong industry connections, particularly the chairman of the committee. And that's when problems start to rise for the Royal Society. The campaign was launched by the Canadians for Safe Technology, and they harshly criticized the choice of this person as the chairman. And because of that
who did
pressure,
they choose to be the chairman?
His name is Dr. Krinsky from the McLaughlin Institute, and he has very, very close associations with the industry and with Health Canada.
And this is very important because we're looking into the safety around cell phones, which 95% of the people in Canada are probably using constantly on a daily basis. So this is a very important issue. And I think the story is that the person that Mr. Harper chose to lead the study, to be the chairman of this group, has such close ties to the industry that he's now been forced out.
Well, it was Health Canada who asked the Royal Society to form a committee, and the Royal Society formed a committee. How does that all happen? We'll never know, but it just happened that a whole bunch of really, really industry flacks were on the committee. It was just outrageous by any measurement, particularly when they're trying to pretend to be objective. And in this case, they got caught. And a great thing is that a new group here in Canada called the Citizens for Safe Technology did some great work on that, and they basically forced this fellow to resign as the chair.
Now, to me, one of the most interesting parts of this whole story is that there's been nothing in the media about it. I mean, how dare the media of this country, when something like this happens on such an important issue, they keep it completely secret. And I mean, this is the media kind of thing that we're surrounded by 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They misinform us, they mislead us on issues of the most basic safety to all of our health. I mean, why is this story kept secret?
Well, it's not in the interest of those in power to really tell the truth about it. The evidence is very overwhelming that the type of radiation emitted from cell phones and Wi-Fi is detrimental to health. A lot of the viewers will say, oh no, he's at that again, this is not right. Well, I tell them, go ahead, do your own homework, contact me. I'd love to see this evidence that shows that this technology is safe. I know for a fact that cell phones were exempted from that sort of analysis when they first were brought out. They never have been examined as a product safety. And it's almost impossible, to believe that, but in fact, they are exempted. They do not have to show that these devices are safe.
And to me, it's an issue that's exactly the same as smoking. We all smoked, or many of us smoked for a long time. A lot of people got sick and died from smoking. The industry knew for decades, the government knew for decades, people were kept in the dark. I'm afraid that this new thing, Wi-Fi, cell phones, smart meters, and all the rest, we are going to pay the same price for that. I've seen people die from smoking, and it is not a pretty thing. And for our leadership to keep the whole thing secret and pretend that it's safe is, I mean, what do you call it short of murder?
But the thing is, the trend that I see is that they're having it's harder and harder for them now to suppress the truth, and more groups are forming, and I think the federal government's feeling some heat. Health Canada's feeling some heat. It's wonderful what these people have done, that have organized this initiative to democratize this panel, and you know they're seeing some success. So just great. Keep chipping away, work hard at it. You know, we still can make some changes within the system. You know, you just have to work very hard to do it.
Yeah, so Citizens for Safe Technology.
Well, the name for the national group is Canadians for Safe Technology, and they're mostly based down in Ontario.
Moving right along, I think that something that might be beneficial to our society is to have schools open at night, maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, maybe 7 nights a week, for things like badminton, floor hockey, checkers, chess, cards, classes, films, all of those kinds of things. I mean, in every one of our communities, there's always a school or 2 or 3. The nice thing about them is that they're usually within easy walking distance of where most people are living. You don't have to hop into your car and go somewhere. It would be a great way to, I think, to make our communities more community-like. If people, you know, on a Tuesday night, walk down and have an hour of badminton with the family or with your friends in the neighborhood.
Oh, it's an excellent idea, and all those buildings just sitting there.
Yeah.
So you know
So the question is
infrastructure's
why?
there.
Yeah, the infrastructure is there, the buildings are there. Why isn't it happening? I asked somebody several months ago, one of our school trustees, and that person I think thought it would be a good idea, but there's no money, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the whole issue of why is there no money? And the reason there's no money is because over the last 12 years, the Liberal government has cut taxes to the corporations and the people, the richest people, by about $6 billion a year. I mean, we all got a little bit, but the vast, you know, the biggest chunks of tax savings went to the people at the top. And so there's no money for anything like this. Now, there is money for malls to be open, you know, 24 hours a day, as far as I know. There's money for, you know, why is there always money for the private sector to be doing what it wants to do, but the public sector is being more and more starved? To me, it seems like if people think that maybe having our local schools open as real community centers, centers for the community, I think it would be great. If me and you are the only ones who think this, then, you know, okay, maybe it's an idea that's not destined to go anywhere. But if a lot of people think it's a good idea, then we should be doing it. And the reason we're not doing it is because the people who run the province simply don't want it to happen. So they tell us there's no money, but there is. We can do what we want if we had something like a democratic government which actually cared about and listened to what we want.
And you know, it's complex in the sense that you know it is what people have to really desire, and you know, I'm not seeing learning and sharing ideas as a high priority in our society. We're much more oriented towards consumerism and fashion.
Well, we've had 40
things.
years of massive propaganda in those directions.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think any of us even know anymore what we'd be like if we had chances to pick the directions we want to go in. It's you know, we're shunted and moved and directed into certain things, and that's where we are.
Yeah, you know, and I talked to someone yesterday who says, "Oh, I'm an artist, and what I do absolutely has no value," and it's just so harsh. But in reality, you know, there's not a demand for artists in the way that there used to be. Actually, maybe 10, 20 years ago, artists are not held in the same esteem as they used to be. Painting, you know, is not like the sort of if you said, "Oh, my child's, you know, now graduated and they're going to become a painter," everybody go like, "It has to be painting houses." It wouldn't be painting portraits, you know.
Yeah. Next, or do you want me to choose the next one?
Keep choosing. You're doing well.
Okay, okay. Oh yeah, noise. That's something I've been on about over the last month or so, and there was a story in the TC this past week of a situation somewhere in town of just a nightmare, a noise scenario. I mean, neighbors, the whole block, literally being driven to absolute distraction. The person who did it has now actually been put in jail, which never happens, but it's taken, I think in the newspaper it said 6 or 7 years, well, of this going on before a semi-solution has been found. And I see this happening all around us. You know, for some reason, the people who run our society have decided that noise is okay, and there seem to be virtually no limits on what anybody or everybody can do to disturb and bother your neighbors if you want to. I mean, you know, you got the leaf blower out there, no problem. A motorcycle passed me this morning when I was walking to work that was so loud.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I work not that far from the police station. You know, do the police ever react to anything like this?
Well,
And
you know,
why
with
not?
these stereos are in cars, you know, I'd be sitting stuck in traffic and I hear a song being played. It's not a bad volume. I'm listening to the song. My windows are rolled up. It's coming from the car beside me. Their windows are rolled up. Could you imagine how much noise is inside that car?
Well, you know what? I don't care how much noise is inside the car. I just care about how much noise is outside the
Yeah,
car.
but you know what I mean?
And-
Like, could you imagine what that person felt, the need to turn this device up that loud?
Yeah.
It really doesn't make any sense.
I think that's another thing that our society could do that would make it in many ways a better society is to just reduce noise levels
Oh yeah.
and you know, put some focus on that. And I think everybody would be, because you know, when you step out of the city even a little bit into one of the bigger parks, or like around Swan Lake in some areas of it where you
Yeah.
have some peace and quiet, I mean, that's what the world's really like. It's not as industrial as they make our society by this never-ending just cacophony of noise.
We've come to accept it to a certain amount, and usually it's the case, as you say, when there's an absence of a lot of noise around you, you just feel this fantastic relief. And you hadn't realized the stress that the noise was placing you under.
Exactly. Is Christy Clark fit to be the premier of this province? You know, this thing struck me over the last week or two because of the by-election she just won in the Okanagan. And I heard her on radio a couple of times, and she is so black and white. It seems about all issues, and issues aren't that simple. Like take the debt. I mean, during the recent election, the provincial election that she won, she was traveling around in a bus that said debt-free BC on it. Well, the Liberal government has put BC billions of dollars into debt over their last 12 years. And just in BC Hydro alone, they've committed us to paying $50 billion over the next 30 or 40 years to buy power from private power producers that we don't need. And she has the gall to drive around during the election in a bus saying debt-free BC. I mean, is this the kind of person that is this the kind of person we want as the premier of our province?
Yeah, you have to feel a little bad about it. I mean, she is a human being, and she's probably a very
I'm sure
nice
she's
person.
a very nice person.
And we're dissing her a lot, but the thing is that I was trying to think of an analogy, and the best I can come up with is she looks like what Ronald Reagan looked like in the States when he was the president of the United States. It had nothing to do with reality. It didn't matter. It was just a show it was just for him. He probably thought he was still making another movie or something. And for her, the trying to figure out what's right or wrong, or what's facts, what are real facts and what are made up, or I don't think she's there. I think she learns her lines very well, and she just goes out and says them, but it just leaves you totally cold. If you're really concerned about issues and you watch her talk, you just realize, yeah, we're in a lot of trouble because we don't have that sort of leadership that
Thoughtful.
and not thoughtful enough to steer us away from the rocks, and the whole initiative towards the liquefied natural gas. You know, it has no merit. It has no economic merit, and certainly is a devastating thing to happen to the environment. I think you mentioned the fracking of natural gas as an issue.
Well, we're going to be talking about fracking in the next segment,
Great.
and we're also going to be saying goodbye because we're done.
Always a pleasure, Jack.
Yeah. Thank you, Walter, and thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.